From a world of smashing into people all day long and scrummaging day in, day out, to talking about your mental health on social media, your struggles into transitioning into retirement. I can't wait to get my teeth into this one, not only because I get to nerd out about rugby for the next hour or so, but also because your journey absolutely fascinates me. What I kind of want to start at the end. Take me
Sure.
back to that day that you decided to retire. What happened in the run up to that point where you made that decision?
I remember it very, very vividly. I've been tossing and turning about it probably since the start of my second preseason with Saracens. It was the first time I really went into training and was like, I'm not enjoying this. I don't know if I want to be there. And that really stemmed from when London Irish went under. I wanted to be at London Irish for the rest of my career. I was so invested there emotionally. I was so passionate about playing for London Irish. I loved that club so much. I just signed a 3-year deal there. I was on 170 caps. By the end of this deal, I was going to be 250 plus caps. I was going to be one of the top 5 most cap players ever. I wanted to be a one club man in the UK. I loved it there. And that was just like when they went to administration and was taken away, it actually floored me, like emotionally. I've framed it to some people in a way like to try and to help them understand it is like, imagine you're in like a really trusting, amazing relationship with a spouse. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, that spouse just either divorces you or dies or gets abducted by aliens. And then the next day, you've got an agent or a marriage person on the phone being like, okay, we've got to find a new wife. Let's go. Quick, you got to find a new wife. And you're like, shit, okay, that one. And then you rock up and you're like, go, be in a relationship, go, play your best and like do your best. And the passion for the game, I was always a player that played with like this abundance of passion and like love for the game is what really fueled me. You see me on the side, anytime I played for Irish, like I was all in. Every win and loss and moment, I was just like, this is it for me. And then when I went somewhere else, it just felt like a job. And rugby had never, ever, ever felt like a job for me before. It'd always been, I'd loved the game so much since I was 4 years old. Ever since I've just did it out of love, and luckily I was good at what I loved, and I ended up having it as my career, and I made good money, and I got paid to do my favorite thing in the world. And then when I was growing up, I played for my boyhood club at the Western Force, and like same thing. I was so passionate. I was like a fanboy of the Force before I played for him. I had the jerseys on the wall and all that sort of stuff. So then when I played for him, it was the same thing. I just loved it. And then I moved to London Irish, and I developed this love for this club, and I just wanted to be there. And Saracens was a fantastic place, great people. I really enjoyed my time there, but that passion and that emotion just wasn't there. So I started my second preseason. I started like noticing myself really having to like force myself to get up for training and do the tough stuff that I never questioned. And all the little things about being a pro rugby player, like the lack of autonomy and the super regimentness of it, and never having like no real control over your life. Everything's just being dictated through the rugby lens. Because when you're a pro athlete, it's just that's it. You have to, every decision you make has to go through the athlete lens first. Does this benefit my career? Have I got training tomorrow? When's my next game? Blah, blah, blah. Can I go out and do this? Can I do that? You don't have as much autonomy as you think. And that just started to grind on me all of a sudden. And yeah, it just kind of built and built and built through preseason. And my agent I wasn't playing a lot at Saracens. I wasn't playing my best because emotionally I was kind of in and out, and I was getting in and out of the team. And I knew I wasn't going to stay at Saracens. And yeah, my agent kept presenting me with offers and stuff, and something in me was just like, oh, none of these are really hitting the spot. It's weird. It sounds like I'm not a religious or a man at all, but I don't know, or a spiritual man. But something in my gut and like my intuition was just saying that, like, it's time to. You need to change. It's time to move on. And logically, did it make sense? No, because I had good money offers to keep playing. I had lots of stuff. I was fit physically. I'm 32. Physically, I could have played for another, I reckon, till I'm 40. I felt fantastic physically, but something in my gut. I'd get up every morning. I walk my dog before training. Before I got in the car, it'd be 5 a.m. and I come back home before I get in the car, and I'd sit in bed next to my sleeping wife and have a coffee, and I'd just sit there and think. And everything in my gut was just telling me, this isn't the right thing for you anymore. Like, let's try something else. And then me and my now co-founder of the business I'm starting, we started putting together plans for this business and started putting stuff together, and that kind of lit a little fire under me. And I was like, oh yeah, this is like filling me with that passion that I had once for, when I played at Irish. And then, the actual moment I retired, when I made the real decision, I remember I drove into training. I journaled about it the night before, and then I drove into training that next morning, and I was sitting on the toilet at Saracens training, and I drafted this message I was going to send to my agent. And I started crying as I was doing, because I was like, this is it. Like, I'm actually I'm going to send this. And I was crying on the toilet at training, and I wrote this thing, and I was like, because I knew it was kind of a final thing for me. I wrote this thing and it felt right. And there was still a part of me that was holding on to this rugby player identity and being like, God, this is, because it's scary. It's really scary. It's such a massive transition. It's all I've done my whole life. And yeah, I wrote this message out and I read it back, and I just went, go for it. And I copy and pasted into my WhatsApp to my agent, sent it, sent a message to my family group and said, they knew I was kind of teetering, and I was like, I made the decision, sent the message to my big friendship group, and I thanked my family, I thanked my friends for all the support during my career and all this sort of stuff. And I said, I'll finish off this season and I'm done. And I had like a little 5-minute cry on the toilet when I sent it off, and I did it, and then I went into training, and then my agent kind of told Sarries, and a couple of like a week or so later, and then they had a meeting with me and agreed that I probably wasn't going to play for the rest of the year, and I was just going to go there and support the young guys and prep the team as well as I can and be sort of like a veteran leader for the younger guys. And I took on that role. Was it hard? Yes. Like, my ego took a bit of a bruise, being over 100 premiership games and an international, and I knew I wasn't going to play, and I was just training with 18-year-olds and that sort of stuff, and that hurt the ego a little bit. But I actually got quite a lot of fulfillment out of that last chapter, because I'd come to terms that I wasn't going to play, and I hadn't played for a long time until obviously my last game at the Force popped up out of nowhere. I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah, that's a very, very long-winded answer for me to explain my rationale around retirement, because logically it didn't make sense, but this omnipotent being above, or my gut, my intuition was just, I'm not a money-motivated person. I'm a passion and fulfillment motivated person, and a service motivated person. And I felt a real connection when I played for Irish and the Force and stuff. And I felt like me giving my all and playing my best was serving the fans and serving the organization and stuff. And I like serving people and that sort of stuff. And when rugby started to feel just like I rock up, I'd play and get paid, it just didn't fill my cup.
Yeah. And I think that's so different to why so many people retire, because a lot of people are forced out. Their body give up, they can't take it anymore, or they end up having this really shit relationship with the thing that they've grown up loving, to then be like, well, I hate it, I want out. And I think that like translates into so many different areas of life. For a while, like my big main thing that I did in like my early part of my career, such and such, was in the fitness industry. I did the opposite to you. I ignored my gut. I ignored these little signs and hints, and like, you need to start thinking about it. Like, maybe it's time to call time. You're not enjoying this anymore. You're not having that fulfillment. You're kind of going through the motions with it. I ignored it, and they've ended up walking away with a real like level of resentment. I think that's subsiding a little bit now, but there was like, I hate it. I don't want anything to do with it. Hearing that way of retiring as such, I know it's like as a loose kind of term, is really interesting to hear what you're saying. And you said that you're 32, like people are still going till they're even like front rows a slightly different kettle of fish. I
mean, I played with Augustin Creevy when he only retired. He tried the same year as me. I played with Gussie when we were at Irish together, and he was like 37 then. He retired at 40, and he was still killing it. And like, I feel like physically I definitely could have kept going. And as I said, like logically, my decision, to so many people, they're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I had probably like 4 or 5 offers, some of them on decent, like financially, it's not a smart decision. As I said, I'm bootstrapping a business right now, and like I could be on a very, very cushy salary, still playing rugby, doing that stuff. And like at some point, that was my dream,
Yeah,
and
take that whole in France.
it was, yeah, it was everything I
Yeah.
ever wanted, and didn't speak to me it just didn't speak to me anymore. And I'd spent a lot of time towards the end of my career, probably the last 5 years of my career, I'd spent a lot of time diversifying my self-identity. For my first major portion of my career, I was just Oliver the rugby player. That was me. It was everything to me. I was all in. And what I found was it was a very, very fragile existence and a very, very fragile way to build my resilience, because when rugby went well, I was like, Oliver is a good person. I feel good about myself. When rugby went poorly, I felt horrible about myself, and I felt I was a bad person, and I felt like I was a failure. I was manic about rugby, man. I watched every single game, every training session. I'd go home and analyze everything. I'd nitpick tiny little minute details. We'd win games, and everyone would be happy and celebrating, and I wouldn't go out with my teammates. I'd go home and watch the game because I gave away 2 penalties at scrum time and like beat myself up about it. But I thought that's what I had to do to be the best. You know, I had to eliminate all distractions and just focus on rugby. And then I just got to a point where I was just so fragile, and I was so wedded to the outcomes of how I played on the weekend to feel good about myself or not, that my wife, credit to her, was just like, you got to sort this out, because she doesn't, and the best thing about I love my wife so much. The best thing, one of my favorite things about her is she doesn't give a shit about rugby. She doesn't care at all. I'd come home from it. She'd probably watch me play, and this is not due to her lack of support or whatever. She probably watched like maybe 5 of my games throughout my career. Like, she just doesn't care about rugby. She cares about me as a person and stuff. So she was such a good sounding board and could just like zoom out. She was not wedded. She was not a wag. She's not wedded to me being a rugby player at all. She was so happy when I retired, because now we get to spend more time together. We got more autonomy and that sort of stuff. And she was just like, got to the point where she was like, you've got to sort this out because you're manic. I was like, and then I started working with a sports psychologist, and he asked me, who is Oliver the person, not the player? And I just couldn't answer it. I couldn't, like, I was just like, I'm a rugby player. I'm Oliver the rugby player. I hang out with rugby people. I don't have friends outside of rugby. I just talk rugby. I am rugby. I train. And then I spent time diversifying my self-identity, and that really helped me in this process of retirement, because, yeah, I may be taking away one pillar of my self-identity. Like, I'm not Oliver the rugby player anymore, but I'm still Oliver the husband. I'm still, Oliver who I went back to uni and I've got a psychology and counseling degree. I'm the Oliver not a student anymore, but I'm the learned. I'm a massive nerd. I got a community that I play Dungeons and Dragons with every week. I'm the foodie, and now I'm a creative story writer because I'm dungeon master, and I'm really enjoying creating content now around. I've got obviously the open book stuff that I'm doing. I've started creating just like vlogging food content because I realize I love exploring communities through the hospitality industry. So I've just taken my dog on solo trips and I've started vlogging that stuff, and I've started I'm just leaning into creativity. So I've got all these other pillars of my self-identity that when rugby ended, I'm like, okay, that's not me as a person, which I think a lot of people get stuck in the mentality that I had earlier on in my career, where it's like, and I get it, because being a pro sportsman is tough, and it is such a competitive landscape, and every single day you are just auditioning for your next job, auditioning to get picked so you get a next contract. So you have to be all in. But the paradox of it is that the more I kind of took a step back and focused on other things outside of my life, the better I played, because I wasn't playing from a place of like fear and that. I was playing from a place of like freedom and enjoyment and like fulfillment, and like and I could go to work, commit fully while I was at work, and then leave and put my boots up and take off my rugby hat, and I've got all these other hats. And that really helped in this process. And I am lucky in the fact that I retired on my own terms, but that doesn't mean the retirement's been easy for me. I've actually found it, I was probably naive. It's been way harder than I thought. Because I retired on my own terms, I was like, I've made the decision, not really enjoying any rugby anymore. I'll be fine. And then I've like stopped and I'm like, ooh, maybe it was a bit of a mask for some toxic traits I have. But it's been, that's been another entire journey. But yeah, I was lucky that I retired on my own terms, but I did a lot of work on myself before the years leading up to the end of my career that allowed me to kind of navigate it in a way that is probably unique to most people.
Yeah, totally. And do you want to go into, like you were saying that about some toxic traits that you had that this decision was covering up? Are you okay talking about that?
Yeah, of course. As I say, I'm the open book, man. I've studied psychology. I'm the cry guy. I cry in front of people. I don't care about talking about my emotions. Yeah, I was probably a bit naive in the fact that, as I said, I made this decision very much on my own terms. I knew what I was doing. I knew the world I was stepping into. I chose to go from pro sports is not a secure job. I've never signed more than a 2-year contract in my life, but I've had a salary since I was 18, since I signed my first professional contract. Even before that, when I was in the academy, I was getting some tiny little wage in. But like, this is my first time ever where I'm bootstrapping a business. I haven't chose the cushy path of going into a job, which I could have done if I had the opportunity to, but I chose I went from the most regimented environment of professional sport. Like, I'd say probably the army's the most regimented, but sport is so regimented. It's like as a pro rugby player, you come in on, even before you leave for the end of season break, you get your whole next season schedule up front. You're getting these 5 weeks off at the end of the year. You'll get like a couple of days off here. If Christmas falls on the right time, you might get Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off, but you'll be in Boxing Day, and like you just get told everything. So I could, like, from July, I could look at my entire year and be like, on February 12th at 1 p.m, I'm doing this at this time, and this is the type of session. Then you rock up, and it's not like I rock up to training, I get given my kit, I get told what to eat, I get told what weight to be, I rock up to a training session, we're doing this, and this. And you become the ultimate just like foot soldier, where you're just like, okay, this is what I'm doing, I just do it as well as I can. And I've chosen a path where I've left that hyper regimented world, and it's like, okay, you're starting a business, and it's the complete opposite. And maybe I was a little bit naive. I was like, oh, I want autonomy over my life. I really want autonomy. And I've realized that is just as liberating as it is, it terrifies me, because I wake up every day, and the problem I'm struggling with is not, if I don't do anything, nothing's going to get done. Mine is now, because it's that, I feel like I have to be productive, optimal, doing stuff every moment of every single day, whether it's for business or my health or my physical stuff. I've lost 27 kilos in the last 4 months, because I've just been like, I don't have to be 130 kilos anymore. Sweet. I'm just going to flog myself, and I'm training more than ever. Every moment I sit down on the couch at 6 p.m, I'm like, oh, I could go and just do this bit more work. Or if it's like a Wednesday, and there's some days when you start a business, you have a slow day, there's not a lot going on, there's nothing really you can do to move the needle, and it's good to take a bit of step back and, as I said, lean into those other passions in your life and that sort of stuff. But I've just been struggling with this guilt and this inner critic every time I stop and try and slow down and be like, you wanted this autonomy. You don't have any pressing business to do right now. It's a Wednesday at 11 a.m, but you could go and go walk the dog, or go take yourself on a trip into London and go and have some fun. But if I do that, my brain's like, you need to go and work, either work out physically and flog yourself to quiet that, or go do business work, which a lot of the time I find out I'm just like, what can I do? And I sit down and I'll just make up a job for myself to do, because it quiets that voice. It's like, okay, you're being productive, Mr. Robot. You're taking steps towards finally having a salary or making this thing. When actually I'm just burning the candle from both ends, where it's like I'm fueling this inner critic that comes into my brain, and I'm succumbing to it and be like, okay, you win, I'll do something. And then I'm tired and I could have just told him to shut up, zoomed out and been like, you know what, I want to prioritize some rest and lean into Oliver the creative or Oliver the foodie or Oliver the different identity pillars that I mentioned. But yeah, rugby was kind of a mask that allowed me to just like really lean into I'm a very type A type of person where I want to be productive and optimal all the time. And rugby was like the perfect way that I could go to work and just be that crazy optimal performance-based person, tick that box, scratch that itch, quiet that noise, and then come home and chill. Whereas now, I don't have that separation between work being this optimal place and home and thingo being chill, because I'm my own boss in a way. I do it. So work is everywhere potentially. So it's like, that's the main sort of sticking point I've had, where I'm trying to find that balance between the thing that I wanted the most was autonomy, yet it's also the thing that's bringing me the most stress, because finding balance is difficult when balance has been dictated to you in a way your whole life. I've never had to find balance, because my whole life has just been, since I was 14 and put into academy, I've been told I either have to, when I was a 14-year-old kid, when I went into academy, the first thing they said to me back in the day, which you probably wouldn't get away with now, that, oh mate, you're a great player, but you're a fat cunt, you need to lose a bunch of weight and blah blah blah, so like you need to be this weight. And then I worked really hard to be this lean, fit person, and then I came over to the UK, and they're like, oh, you're way too small for a tight head, you need to put on 12 kilos. So I ate a bunch and like made myself 132 kilos the whole time I was over here. And then, so like all that stuff's been dictated, like even my physical shape has been dictated to me my entire life. So now I've got this autonomy. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to flog myself and lose all this weight. And then I'm like, why am I so stressed out about all this shit now? Like, it doesn't, as long as I'm healthy and that sort of stuff, I can zoom out and think that. But yeah, just putting all these pressures on myself. And for no reason other than the fact that my brain has been conditioned to have pressure on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that makes sense. So I'm answering all your questions very, very long-windedly.
And that's what it's about. Like, I'd rather that than yes, no, maybe.
Yeah.
Which is what we like to hear. So, like, I think I'm very much like the answer's in the middle.
Yeah, it is. It always is. Balance is the thing, but I suck at it.
So I was talking to a friend about the whole idea of balance, and he's like, whoa. Like, balance is similar to perfection. And we like, oh, don't go after perfection because it doesn't exist as like kind of a concept. But it's more about order. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like in the last, so I like journaling quarters. So you got Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And in Q3, I sat there and wrote out my wins and was like, let me rank them against like, is that like a focus-based outcome? Is that a fun-based outcome? Is that a financial outcome? Family, finance? And I went through and I started ticking them and like tallied them up at the end. Now, in theory, one of them could have been, several things at once.
Yeah, of course.
And I got to the end and I was like I thought, oh, it felt kind of like quite well balanced, but I didn't write anything about fitness. So I completely neglected one, but I'm like, I walked away and I was like, but that doesn't actually change anything about how fulfilled I felt about the whole thing.
That's the secret sauce, isn't it? Fulfillment's the key, isn't it? And like the thing that I always chase is like is peace is what I'm after. All I want in life is peace. I'm not a material person. I don't need to make a shit ton of money. I don't need to chase anything other than I want peace. And for me, that is simplicity. It is essentially I've got five core pillars that I live my life by, and I try and gauge if I'm doing things right. And when I journal and stuff, and when I'm in these sort of like inner criticky, hyper intense moments since I've retired, I try and sit down and objectively, you can zoom out at some points and journal and be like, did what I do today fulfill the 5 pillars of my life? And the first one is my relationship with my wife and my marriage. That is key to me. I love my wife more than anything. I've got more time in my hand to spend time together. When I was playing, she works nights a lot. I'd leave before she wakes up in the morning to drive up to St Albans. I commuted like 3 hours a day when I was playing for Saracens, because we love where we live and I didn't want to move. So like I'd leave before she'd wake up. She'd get back after I went to bed, and we just like never saw each other. So now I'm like really prioritizing time with my wife. Physical health is super, super important to me. And I've probably lent into that, or I have lent into that probably too much. I've gone in the other way where since I've retired, I've always wanted to kind of lose weight, but I haven't been able to since I've played, because I needed to be heavy to be a tight head. And I've lost a bunch of weight, and I've started feeling really good and liking the way I look finally and all this sort of stuff. But I've probably lent into it way too much. Like, I'm training like an absolute madman and weighing every bit of food and counting every calorie and just like gone manic in that way because it quiets the brain. But physical health, because I believe that all the stuff I say on socials and about mental well-being and stuff, I always will preach fix the physical first. So I think physical health is the first pillar of any mentally well person. Like, I just think if you're feeling great physically and you understand the difference between, I don't think people understand the difference it makes because they've always been they've never felt that sort of physical wellness. When you really lock in and your body's feeling fantastic and you're confident in the way you look and your joints don't hurt and you've got energy and all this sort of stuff, it affects all areas of your life. You become a more confident communicator, talk to you differently. And like, the brutal honesty of it is, like, people, like, I believe that your physical well-being is kind of a external receipt of your choices as a person, in a way. You know, like, that's a very blanket statement, but unfortunately in the world we live in, if you especially in business, like, if you go into a room and speak to someone and you look physically healthy and fit and all that sort of stuff, you walk into a room and they're straight away like, okay, yeah, this guy he's got discipline, he can commit to stuff. He's like, it's just like an external receipt of some really core values that I think are important to me. So yeah, I always preach physical health, marriage, physical health, my creativity. Like, I'm a really creative guy. As I say, I play Dungeons and Dragons weekly with a bunch of groups. I dungeon master, I creative write, I create content now. All that stuff fills my cup massively. My friends and my community is massive to me. Like, I love my friends. I've got a great community around where I live, and I really want to nurture that. And that just like fills me up a lot and fills my cup. Like, I get a lot of value just like sitting down and having a coffee with a mate. Like, that just really, really, fills my cup. And then the last one, which is actually a really core pillar for me because I love doing it during rugby, but I struggle with it now, is relaxation and recovery. And usually for me, that's like gaming or stuff like that, because that really just like resets me and something that I've neglected. But when I make decisions in life, I usually try and like go back to these 5 core pillars. Like, am I serving these things that fill my cup? Because for me, they bring me peace. And that's the overarching goal of everything I do, is try and get peace. And I haven't got that balance right in retirement. I've very much lent into the physical stuff, and yeah, and then also my business stuff to try and quiet the noise. But the business stuff also does feed the creative things. When you're building your own thing, it's great. Like, I get creative expression over, for once, I get creative expression even over just like the structure of my day, or creative expression over like, if we're building a brand, we're doing this, we're doing that, or we're building websites, we're going out and reaching out to clients, and building pitch decks and all this sort of stuff. It's all new and exciting and fun to me. And I'm learning. Yeah. I love learning. So that stuff, but like, there's definitely a bunch of my pillars that I've been neglecting massively, which has led to me struggling a little bit in retirement.
That's kind of what I'm trying to build a bit for myself. Like, I feel like I probably had that, and listening to all of these voices from coaches, mentors, friends, like social media, just consume, kind of like got away from like, okay, well, so what do I want it to look like? And I think that is a big, you might relate to it, you might not, but like, for me, that was a really big step to actually like almost having that like autonomy. But what do I want? How do I want to? How do I want to feel? How do I want to walk through my day? How do I want to experience it?
Yeah,
similar to you. Like, I love the idea of just having fingers in different pies. Whether it's helping a friend with their business, almost like, I like the concept of business. Like, I had a shit experience with really backing myself into a corner with my fitness business, but I actually love talking to friends and stuff like that, and the back end and the systems, and like making like a sales process really easy, like making sure that like there's the control in the right place, and like the automation and how you go from A to B and how that works and how that feels as like a user. Like, you asked me to put my sort code and account number, you've probably lost me. So we made that really easy. yeah, so like, and that's coming back to, and I'm almost like starting to create these like handful of like statements to live by, and just like a lot of them, to be fair, are probably like shaped by like rugby. Like I love the idea of that you build up to one thing, you know, you have a week building up to something, break,
Yeah.
review, go again, you go back to the zero.
Process. Go. Yeah.
Like what I found is I love that. I love like that really. There's going to be something that's sort of like nursing with inside of me, but the idea of like process, and looking at the nitty gritty.
It's the secret sauce to high performance, but it also is a double-edged sword. I found it's like had that like it's really hard as a pro athlete to ever give yourself time to slow down and smell the roses, and that is probably something that I've actually found really fulfilling in retirement. As hard as the slower life, or I mean the less regimented life and more autonomy has been. I made a video on my socials the other week about me saying that like I walk into my living room and look at my Wallabies jersey every so often, and I promise you this happens. Like I wasn't bullshitting saying that this happens multiple times a week. That I walk in there and I look at it, and I'm like, wow, like I achieved something so special. And when you're in it, in the washing machine of pro sports, it's just like you win, you lose, you either sad about it or you celebrate for 30 minutes and change them afterwards. You go recover, you have a day off on a Sunday, but you're so sore and cooked after playing that you kind of just like hobble around and do nothing. And then you're back in Monday, you review for an hour, you learn, but all the reviews are looking forward, and you're just like, on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. And then the season finishes, and it's like you have like an end of season review, and you go and get 5 weeks off, which is actually only really 10 days or so, because then you have to start running and prepping yourself for preseason. Because if you come into preseason undercooked, it's like there's always just the next thing. So you really only get like maybe 2 weeks a year where you can really just like step back and like, and then you're so done with rugby for the season. You're like, I need these 2 weeks just to not even think about it. So you never really stop and like sit back and be like, oh, I achieved this, or this is where I'm at. Man, I did a good job. And you sit there and like pat yourself on the back. It's just so next job. So, and I got addicted to that process, obviously, but I think it is a double-edged sword where it's like, sometimes you need to take a step out of that sort of churn and be like, man, I'm doing all right. I've done a really like whatever, not just in pro sports, but just in life. I think a lot of people have a hard time patting themselves on the back and being like, look at where I'm at now. Like probably me from 2 years ago used to dream about the life I've got right now. That's not everyone's in that circumstance, but like, yeah, you know, like most people are living the life that their past selves dreamt about living, you know? But when you're in the moment, you always feel like there's the next thing to go after. You always want more and more. Not talking just about physical stuff or material things or money, but you just want the next achievement or the next goal or the next this or the next that. But when if you can zoom out and be like, look at objectively where you're at and be like, man, my past self would have killed to be here. Like, it's just so like, something like I would have, if you told me when I moved to the UK in 2016, when I was like at a really low point after my boyhood club sacked me off and told me that I wasn't good enough, and I came over to the UK and was like going to London Irish, didn't know anything about the Premiership. I just like, okay, I've got family in London, let's go to London. This sounds cool. I'll do it for a couple of years and go back. And then if you told that kid who rocked up in 2016 to London that I'd still be living here 10 years later, I would have found my wife, would have had this incredible career where I played 170 odd games for London Irish and then went over to Saracens and played for the Wallabies, and I've got an amazing wife and I'm living in a beautiful area in southwest London, and I made enough money to have a deposit for a small 1-bedroom flat, but I've got property in southwest London. Like, I would have bit your arm off. Like, I would have said, where the hell do I sign up for this? And yet, like, still I find myself now feeling like I haven't done enough. And I'm like, it's a hard skill. It is a hard skill, and it's easy to say, easy in principle, hard to, put into practice.
Absolutely. I think like there is a level of like that is like we need to sit there and be like, that is a hard skill. The fact that we're aware that it is hard
Doesn't make it
doesn't
easier.
make it easier, but like that puts you ahead of a hell of a lot of people who don't, that's not even in their realm of consciousness. And I think that's a win in itself. Like the fact that you are at least a little bit aware of how much you don't know, and you know, like how far you've got to go with this hard skill. Like that's brilliant. Like surely, sure.
And that's it's a lot of the purpose of the content I'm putting out. Like the last thing I want is to feel like people to feel like I'm telling them how to live their life. But if I can just if they can just take a little bit of a little something away from what I talk about mindset and that sort of stuff and the lessons that I've learned through pro sports, and be like, if it just makes them a little bit more aware of their situation or something, they can take something away from it. And I've had I don't have a massive following whatsoever. I don't, a lot of, a lot of people on social media know that it's a grind, and most of your videos get no bloody views. Occasionally one will pop off, but even for ones that get very, very limited views, I've had hundreds and hundreds of messages from people all over. The power of socials is crazy. I've had people message me from all over the world asking me for advice, saying I've helped them through this, saying they've taken this away from my chats and thanking me. And I'm like, that's the source there. I don't want to tell people how to live their life, but all I want is to, I love helping people. I love, that is my thing. And if you can take just a little smidgen from, if I've got 100 videos out there, if you can watch one of them and just take a little bit and be like, oh, maybe it sparks a little bit of introspection and whatever, then I've helped someone progress along that journey. And as you said, just having that tiny bit of introspection to know where you're at and think about your thoughts and emotions and kind of process them rather than just letting them dictate you. Because, you are in control of your brain. You can train your brain to think in certain ways, and just having that level of consciousness of your emotions and thoughts, and being able to sit there and just be aware of them and not just let them blindly dictate your actions. That's the main goal I want from my content. Not to preach about how to live, but to try and make people just stop and think about their thoughts and be like, I'm feeling this way. Why? Or this is maybe leading to this. And just having the ability to do that can be life-changing.
Yeah, totally. And the value in slowing down, thinking about your thinking, or just being I'm fed up of this thing. Why? What is in it? And one of my favorite, it's more of a coaching question, but it's something that I ask myself all the time. I'm like, what am I doing here? How am I contributing to this? There may be circumstance, but right, how am I making this worse for myself than it needs to be? And then that's a hell of a starting place now of I'm this thing.
Yeah, just
what if I stopped doing this thing and potentially did something else?
Yeah, just having the ability to slow down and try and see how your thoughts are contributing to a situation, because your thoughts and emotions ultimately dictate your actions, whether you like it or not. All of us are primitive creatures, and our brains are the things that fuel everything within us. But as I said, our brains are primitive, and they've got all these silly mechanisms that still think that there's saber-toothed tigers out there that protected us back then. But in the modern world, a lot of what our brains and emotions go through are just not suited for the actual magnitude of problems we have. And when you have the ability to stop, analyze, zoom out a little bit before you act or react, or just having even just a second to be like, why am I feeling this way? Whether it's good or bad. I think it's really if you find something that brings you a bunch of joy, having the ability to stop and be like, okay, why did that bring me joy? Because then you can lean into that more. It's not always has to be about unpicking neurotic things or this makes me upset, blah, blah, blah. If something brings you joy, having the ability to stop and be like, okay, what actually was the trigger, or what actually was the thing that brought me that fulfillment and joy? Let's lean into that. That's probably more, that's just as beneficial, if not more, than figuring out what triggers you and trying to unpick that. Find out what brings you joy and the reasons for that, because maybe that aligns to one of your one of my 5 pillars. Everyone's is different. Everyone has different goals in life. Mine is to find peace through those 5 things. Someone's could be completely different. And if you have the ability to just stop sometimes and zoom out and just analyze your why and why you're acting a certain way or why your thoughts are a certain way and what the trigger point is, it can be so life-changing.
Yeah. I think just leave like a minute to let that settle. And yeah, I slowing down. Like in a world that's fast, quick, how quickly can I get from A to B? How can I remove any friction? Like, yeah, there is value in that. Don't get me wrong. Would I, rather use the idea of ordering a takeaway, for example? Would I rather tap a piece of glass and a man rocks up on my door? Here's the thing you asked for. Ring it up and then try and get the exact change and then go to the place and then give it and then go in there, check everything's right and drive back home. And then you sat there and then you can do it. Like that's, I know what I would rather. But despite that, it's slowing down. And there's a quote, and I'm sure I've said it in every single episode of this series so far, is all of the answers are within. We just need to be quiet enough to hear them.
Oh, I love that. Love that. I might steal that for one of my open book videos. I might steal this clip and put it at the start. That's so nice. Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? Like you have the answers to all of your problems if you have the ability to stop and search for them. But as I said, easy to say, very hard to do. Very, very hard to do.
I externalized so much of my thinking and had paid to have my thinking done for me, and to constantly be listening to these opinions and then trying to weave it into some kind of comprehensible mesh to then walk on. But it's not until you go in and actually I know exactly what I need to do. I just need it's within me somewhere. I just ride to the surface so I can see it
massively. And I think a lot of this is, as I said, it's a bit of the thing around my content that I don't want it to come across this way. But there's so many people out there who are just like the grind culture, hustle culture, content thingers that push this narrative onto people that you have to, which is something that I soaked up. Like when I knew I was going to retire and move into this next stage, I started listening to business podcasts and this and that and optimization and how can I make this work the best and how can I optimize my life for peak performance and this and that. And as you said, it just externalizes all of your thoughts for you. And then you've got AI and people use ChatGPT for everything. Every decision, it's oh, should I eat this or that? What should I do? People I've been guilty of it sometimes. The world's built up now. The modern world is just built to reduce all decision making and friction for your life. And as I said, I think it's really hindered our ability to make objective choices that serve us because we just externalize it all and want something or someone or some app to make a decision for us. Because obviously people are stressed and burnt out and life is tough and people are under financial stress at the moment and all this sort of stuff. So you get home or you're at work and blah, 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 and you just don't have the cognitive bandwidth.
Love that word.
To just to stop and have to think about your thoughts. That sounds so meta. I've got so much shit going on. I've got kids. I've got to pay bills. I've got to work. You want me to stop and think about my thoughts? Come on. I get it. It's hard, but it is life-changing if you can find time to just slow down. Even I'm saying just write a thought down. Just write one, spend 30 seconds and sit in silence and just write something that came from here and externalize it. That trains the muscle of thinking about your thoughts. We're in a world that wants to make all the decisions for you, and most of the time those decisions are actually made in the best interests of people who want to get money or get something out of you. A lot of the self-help gurus on thing, I want to sell you a course. A lot of these, I'll make your grocery shopping easier, is because they want you to sign up to their subscription model or do this or do that, or they're getting paid on the side and more. Everyone's got an exagenda, and your personal agenda should be to serve the thing that brings you the most joy. So why would you externalize your decision making, your thoughts and stuff to other people who are going to ultimately have their own agenda. That's just the way it is. Everyone's going to try and serve themselves the most, but only you know what serves you. So why don't you listen to yourself the most? But as I said, easy to say, hard to do.
Amazing. Let's start about moving on a little bit. Now, one of my favorite videos from you was the story of you getting your first ever call up to the Wallabies.
It is a wild story.
And let's go back to that phone call. You get the call, you get called into camp. They were already in, I've got this right, Australia were already in London training. You're obviously...
Yeah, they played Scotland the day before, and they'd just gone down to London on the Sunday when I got the call. They'd just gone to London.
So you get that call, you get called in, obviously pick up stash, and you're in camp.
Yeah.
What's that experience like?
Numbing. Like, as I said in the video, like, I'd never spoken to the Wallabies before this, never had any ounce of communication to any of them. And I was at a mate's place down the road from where I live right now. I still playing Dungeons and Dragons. I still play with them every week, and got a call from Petrus, who was a guy I played with at Irish and was a scrum coach of the Wallabies. And he was like, yeah, tomorrow we might need you to come into camp because Alan and Taniela have gone down. And when I got that call, I was just like, what? Okay. Like, because I'd played in the UK my whole life and I knew the Wallabies didn't pick overseas players. I've always wanted to play for the Wallabies, but I was like, it's probably not going to happen. If I was ever going to play international rugby, because I'm British, England qualified, I'd be like, I guess England's the route. But like, I wasn't passionate about playing for England, but like, you know, Wallabies were my team. And yeah, so when he gave me that call, I was just like, oh my God, this can't be real. And then I went to London Irish training on the Monday, and then they called Irish and were like, we need Ollie over at the Lensbury, which once again, so fortuitous. I live in southwest London. They're based in Teddington, round the corner from me.
The Lensbury as well. What a play.
Beautiful. Yeah, really, really nice. And yeah, I rock up in full London Irish kicks. I come from training. I've got no stash. Anyway, I remember rocking up to the concierge and being like, yeah, where are the Wallabies? And he was like, I don't know if I can tell you that. I'm like, I'm a player. And he's like, okay, down there. And I just like rocked up in full London Irish kit, didn't have any stash, had nothing, walked into the team room. There's a couple of players there who I'd like knew because I grew up with a lot of the guys and played in the Aussie system and stuff, and got a chatting with them. And then the team manager came down and gave me like a plastic, literally like Tesco bag with a few bits and bobs in, and was like, yeah, here's your room key. We got training at like 5:30. It was about 3 p.m. And I was like, can I drive home quick and grab some stuff? And he was like, yeah, sweet. So I drove home and grabbed some stuff to go to stay in the hotel for the week. And yeah, just went into training, and it was just a wild week. And then within less than 24 hours of being there, I got named on the bench to play against England. And I'd like done one walkthrough, met the coach less than 24 hours before, and had a meeting on the Tuesday morning, and they put me on the bench. And I was just like, I literally just could not fathom what was going on. I said I had no warning. I had no build-up of making a training camp and, you know, getting that elation and then going into camp for weeks and kind of understanding the system and understanding the pecking order of where you are. You know, when you're in a squad, it's kind of like the starters will train over here, and if you kind of know where you're at and who you're competing against to get picked and all that sort of stuff. I had none of that. I just went from 0 to 1 million within like the blink of an eye. So I just exploded when my name came up. I had no heads up, and I just was like, I cannot believe this happened. Like, I just couldn't, my body just malfunctioned. I couldn't function. I just then started blubbering in front of everybody because I was like, this is just the wildest thing of all time. And then, and then I trained for the week. When it got announced on socials, it just exploded because I put the video of me crying up, and it blew up, and I was getting messages again. Like, I've never had so many messages. And then my parents live in Kuala Lumpur, and this was just at the end of COVID restrictions had just kind of loosened, but it was still hard to get into the country. And they managed to like fly in the morning of, and I went out and had coffee with them in Richmond the morning of, and I got like this is the Saturday morning before we played England. And I went and got a coffee with them that Saturday morning, and I probably had like a 0.5% experience of what like fame was, because it's like Richmond's South West London's very rugby dominated, and my video obviously made the rounds, and I was playing against England. I was sitting in the corner of this local coffee shop that I went to all the time, went there every single day, and usually everyone knows me, and it's just sweet. And I was sitting in the corner of the thing, and I was just getting peppered by random people asking for photos, asking for this, asking for that, and I was like, this is just too much. I was like, sorry, Dad, I know I haven't seen you in about 2 years, but I need to go back to the hotel because this is just like overwhelming me. And I actually have quite an important game later today, so I'm just going to go and like chill out a little bit. And then the game, once again, just crazy mental experience running out onto Twickenham. The warm up, I was just like, what is, like, I cannot, like, even the walk, like getting on the bus from the Lensbury and going through, you know, that crowd at Twickenham when you get there, and like getting off the bus and walking through that crowd. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And then you go and warm up on the pitch, and the energy. And then when we walked out for anthems, it was just one of those out of body experiences. It was like I understand when people like have these existential out of body things, because I properly experienced it there. And I was just walking out, and I just didn't feel conscious. I was just like floating, and the fireworks were going, and we lined up to sing the anthem. The anthem started playing. I looked straight across, and it was like mum, dad, wife, best mate. And I just had this moment whilst I was singing, being like, how is this happened? Like, so I understand that there was a large amount of luck in that situation coming together with guys getting injured. But as I said in that post, like I prepared my whole life for this moment, and it all just came together so magically and so quickly, where it's like, this is a home game for me. I live in Richmond. I can walk to Twickenham from my house. And like, for this to happen, these guys get injured, them to be playing England less than a mile from my house, where my wife can be there, my best mate can be there, my mum and my dad managed to get in. And I just sat there, sung the national anthem, crying my eyes out, being like, I cannot fathom that this is happening. I just couldn't fathom. And then the game itself happened super quickly. I played like 13 minutes, made a couple of tackles, had a couple of scrums, they went all right. Didn't touch the ball, cleaned some rucks out, had like one cool involvement where I made a good tackle on Courtney Laws and got a turnover. Got me in the game. It was fast. It was fun. And then it was like over. And I was like, oh, God. And then, I was with them the next week in Wales. Didn't play, which was fine. Like, still trained 24th man for the Welsh game. Same thing at the Principality Stadium. Just that place is amazing. The Welsh national anthem with the roof closed. And I was on the pitch, even like I got goosebumps again singing the Australian national anthem. Then the Welsh one came about. And I was like, oh my God. And my wife is Welsh, and like, she's a very, very proud Welsh woman, and she speaks Welsh as her first language. And like, she's taught me a little bit of Welsh stuff. And those people were just so passionate, aren't they? And they just sung. And I was like, this is just incredible. And then we, did the Welsh game, had their sort of end of season piss up with them. And then next morning, got the bus back to Heathrow. All was very hungover. They shook our hands, said, thanks for the last couple of weeks. I was like, thanks. Never spoke to him again. It was just like this 2-week little fling that is one of the most life-changing experiences of my life. Probably the most definitely the most career-defining, and one of the most justifying experiences of my life. And it just came, and it was incredible, and it went, and it's given me so much peace, which is my thing. It gave me so much peace. I don't think I would have been as peaceful in retirement if that never happened. I always would have had that little, I wish. But I got those 13 minutes. I'm Wallaby number 949 forever. I've got the cap, I've got the jersey, I've got all that stuff. It just brought me so much fulfillment and peace, even though I know there was a lot of luck and fortuity in there. But God, there was a whole lifetime of graft, an entire lifetime of dedication and stuff, to be in the position that when the stars aligned so perfectly and they called my name, I'm like, sign me up. I'm ready. I've been working for this. So as I said, luck and preparation met opportunity, and it was beautiful.
Love that. And I think we get caught up in the idea of luck being like this really like magical thing, but
it's in everything.
Yeah.
It's in everything.
There's a level of like, like you said, there's the preparation, and there's that just opportunity. Like, for some people that never comes.
You can't guarantee it.
It's not a guarantee. Like, when those magical things do happen, like, you're like, I can't not What were you going to do? Turn around and say no?
Yeah, out of fear, but I'd been prepping my whole life. And as I always say to people, like, it's a cliched thing, but it's so true. Like, controlling the controllables in life, pretty much the only thing in life you can control, fully control, is preparation and effort. That's literally it. Like, there's no, in business, in life, in relationships, in sport, in anything, all you can do is prepare as well as you can, and then in the moment, just give your best effort. And outcomes are just not guaranteed. As I said, just as easy as I got that opportunity, it was easier for me not to get it, and I would have put in just as much effort, just as much preparation, just as much effort, all that sort of stuff. But the outcome was not guaranteed. More than likely, it wasn't going to happen. But I didn't like judge myself based off whether the outcome happened. It was based off the effort and the preparation I put in, that when that opportunity came, I was ready. But in anything in life, like, if you just commit to preparing as well as you can, effort, and putting yourself in the best place to achieve what you want to achieve, then you can kind of detach yourself from the achievement. Because if you attach yourself just to the achievement, you can't control that. You can't control if you get a job promotion. I mean, you can't control ultimately, I can't control if my wife could walk in the door right now and say, I want a divorce. Like, I can't control that. It's someone else. But I know that I show up every day in my marriage present. I give her the most of me. I love her to death. I prioritize her. And, I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't know. I could do everything right, and she could rock up and be like, oh, I met someone at work today. Soz. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
But it could happen, But all I know is that I, at the end of the day, tick all the boxes to make sure that I'm the best husband possible. And you can apply that to every aspect of life. If you can honestly tick all the boxes and know that you've prepared and you've given your best to it, and you relinquish the outcome, and for me, I'd relinquish control over if I'm ever going to play international rugby before, but I knew that I'd put in all the preparation, all the work, all the graft, that if it came, I'd be ready. And luckily it came, but it may not have, but it didn't like devalue any of the other stuff that went into it. Regardless of whether I got that outcome or not, the work was still done, and that holds more value than anything.
Did you believe that you'd get that call one day?
I believed I was good enough to, always. But did I believe that it would come? Probably not, just because of the laws of... I knew that if I wanted to go back to Australia and play, I'd be pretty confident, but I didn't. I genuinely thought the opportunity would pass me. And did I think I was going to get picked for England? No, probably not. Like, I'm not a traditional sort of English tight head. I was just like, they've got an abundance of great tight heads and stuff. Like, it just wasn't. And as I said, that wasn't like my... As I said, I'm a fulfilment passion kind of guy. That was one of the things that if it rocked up, I wouldn't have said no. Obviously, I'm not going to turn down playing international rugby, but it didn't drive me. It wasn't my drive. I always wanted to play for the Wallabies. Did I think it was going to happen? No, because of the legality of it, essentially the bureaucracy of not picking overseas players. But I always believed I was good enough. Always, always, always. I never once doubted if I was... I mean, I had self-doubt, but like... When I really thought about it, I always knew I had the ability to do it. And I always worked with that mindset that I am good enough to do it. But I'd kind of, as I said, I'd relinquished all anxiety around focusing on it.
Yeah. Okay. And so a large part of it in your story is around like the circumstance of it. You weren't sat there looking at your phone, waiting for the more
team announcement day sort of thing, yeah.
You weren't sat there looking at that. So did you stay ready, quote unquote, without the promise that you would get that? Because we, as humans, love that feedback loop of I do this, I get that. Turn up to work, I get X amount in my bank account at the end of the month. No, I do X, I get Y. Give you £2 in the shop, I get this particular thing that I've got on.
Get half an apple nowadays, but
especially in London. So how did you keep focus when you knew and that level of like preparation up, even though that you were never guaranteed of that outcome.
Great question. I've actually been asked a lot through my socials and stuff. And the thing that I found is that when you, as I said, when you fully commit yourself to a process, and that's what brings you gratification, and you fully relinquish yourself of outcomes. And this took so long for me to master in my career, but I got to the point where I mastered it. You find joy and gratification in the preparation, in the process, in that sort of stuff. So I got so much internal, my internal self, my self-worth was internally based. I didn't ground it on any external validation whatsoever. So I got so much satisfaction and joy out of making sure that I love the process of bettering myself. I love the process of reviewing, working in the week, and just working hard. And if I got the same with London, like if I got picked, I got picked. If I didn't get picked, okay, that's someone else's opinion. But did I check all the things that I said was important to me? And that's what brought me joy, is if I knew that I loved the preparation, I loved the grind. I was I loved everything about it, which is why when I stopped loving that, I was like, oh, I'm going to step away from rugby, because I've always just loved the grind of it. And I took so much joy out of the process of self-improvement. And that's pro sports. It's about tiny incremental gains over a long period of time, doing the same stuff over and over and over again without any of the guarantee of success. And until you can find an industry or a passion or something where you love that process, it's very, very, very difficult to become a high performer. Because when you're married to outcomes, ultimately you're married to things that you can't control, and you're always going to be riding an emotional roller coaster of when things go well. If you get picked, if you play well, if you get selected, all this, you get that promotion, you get your boss coming over and giving you a big slap on the back, like, good on you, mate. Like, if you're married to that, if you ground your self-worth on external things, then you're vulnerable to, your motivation going blah, 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 based on external things. And I just found eventually, it took me a long time in my career. Trust me, I was so externally validated for a long period of time. And I worked with sports psychs and all sort of stuff. And I found my process and the thing that really and I just fell in love with that. And when you find a craft or a industry or whatever it is in life that you genuinely love the process of showing up for, and improving at, that was the win for me. I just self-improvement and being the best player I could be and the best rugby player I could be, and showing up for London Irish because I cared about London Irish so much. I wanted to win so badly. That's what kept me motivated, I guess. But motivation I never worried about being motivated or not. I just got so much fulfillment out of the process of being the best rugby player I could be. And that's what drove me, really. And then on the back of that, I became a very, very good rugby player and had a fantastic career. And this opportunity came and I was ready, but I was only ready because I fell in love with the process of self-improvement in that field. So that's usually when people ask me, I've been working really hard and, haven't got a promotion at work, or I haven't been picked for a team. And I've had so many young players DM me being like, how do I get picked for a pro team? How do I get into a pro team? And I tell every single one of them the same thing. Don't worry about getting picked for a pro team. Don't. The only way you get that is by being the best version of yourself. And if you're good enough, it will come, but you're not guaranteed it. Focus on your preparation, focus on your effort, focus on all that sort of stuff. And if you're good enough, you might get there, but there's no guarantee. But until you love committing to self-improvement and the process, and you stop grounding yourself and your self-worth and you're chasing external things, you're vulnerable.
I love that, honestly. And I think a lot of people sell themselves short because these pro sports environment, in whatever that it's, we sell ourselves so short that we can't take inspiration from, and pull frameworks from these environments. It doesn't have to be sport, it can be the high performing environment into our day-to-day life. I think we really sell ourselves short on that. There, some of them, you're not going to suddenly wake up one morning and be Lionel Messi or Anton Dupont, like freaks.
No.
0.001%.
Yeah, and I played with some guys who came on the scene and were ridiculous. There's some guys I play, like Henry Arundel. I remember him coming into London Irish training from school at 17, and some people just have it, you know. He rocked up to training and he walked on the pitch, and I've never played with someone who just exuded confidence so much. Like, it took me so long when I went from being an academy player to getting a first senior contract in Super Rugby and actually being like with the big boys. I was like, oh my God, I suck. These guys are so much better than me. And it smacked me in the face and took me so long to like feel comfortable with myself. I remember Henry just rocked up and he just walked onto the pitch and was like, I'm better than all you guys. And he was like 17. And he was going up against guys who played England internationals, all this sort of stuff. And he played that way. He's 18 years old and he rocked up and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to step you. I'm going to try chip and chases and all this sort of stuff. Whereas I was like, when I rocked up, I was terrified of making mistakes. And he just played with this freedom and this liberty. Because some people are wired that way, but they are the needles in the haystack. Most people are in the haystack. I was a very talented player, but mentally I was in the haystack. I had to work a lot on building my confidence up and this and that. And it took me ages and it held me back for a long time. I was still a great player, but God, I'm envious of some people who can just rock up and it just flows so easily. Because the reality is most people, even the people that you see in the highest echelon or whatever you're talking about, if you're in business, the CEOs of the biggest companies, or if you like bloody snooker, the best snooker players in the world, all of them would have gone through the same period that 99% of them would have gone through the same stuff that you're going through, the self-doubt, all that sort of stuff. It's like, sorry, everybody, but you're not that special. It's not unique to you. Your experiences are all the highest performers in every industry in the world that have been they all started as beginners. Every single one of them. Every single one of them got pumped, got filled in by somebody, got dominated, got rejected, came up with what they thought was the most genius product ever and went to someone and they're like, well, this is shit. No. They'll get a billion no's, and the only thing that separates them from the rest is that they don't quit. And you just keep going, you learn small progression, small progression, small progression, small progression. And you fall in love with those tiny little micro progressions that aren't externally validated, as I say. And it's like changed everything.
Incredible. And like, I think there's so much to take away from you are not special. No one is that special. It's how they deal with it that makes them special. And you do have those, those freaks of nature. Like, so I'm a Bath fan, for example. That's right.
Yeah. Well, you got Henry now, you're lucky.
He is one of those players that I see this little blue number 11 suddenly pick it up, and you already know jaw to the floor, whatever, like he's going to do something like one of those players. It just keeps you on the edge of your seat. And just the way that he is the chip and chase. And it's like, at no point do you ever, like, I was watching him on Friday night and I watched him do a chip and chase, wet, windy, lots of mistakes, some absolute world-class players fumbling, making errors in the wet, and they put a kick up, and that's not where I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
World-class players doing that. And there was never, ever a doubt. He was flicking these balls up. He was, getting the ball in hand. At no point was I ever sense, and okay, yeah, I'm in a crowd. There's 16,000 people around me. But at no point did I ever sense any doubt in him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He and people like that, the reason they're so confident is they're not afraid of failure. Like, I've seen him try stuff and not come off, and he's just blank. He's like, okay, cool, and he tries it again, tries it again, and there's some games where he keeps trying and it doesn't work, and you're like, oh yeah. There's some players like that, there's some players just like make you want to. I don't have any hair, but they make you want to pull your hair out because you're like, well, just like play within yourself. But nah, like go for it. I have so much respect for people, and not just rugby players, but in any industry, just people who just swing the bat, just go for it, because like with fear and, and anxiety and stuff just paralyzes so much. And I made a video on this a couple of months back, but it's one of my favorite things is that like anxiety and confidence are actually just born from the exact same mechanism. It's literally just your brain predicting an outcome in the future and you convincing yourself it's true. It's either a fear-based thing or a bad scenario, anxiety, or it's a good thing that you totally believe, therefore it generates confidence. But they're exactly the same thing. It's literally just your brain future predicting things and you believing it. And some people are just wired to believe that everything's going to be sweet, and they try things and they swing the bat, and if it doesn't, okay, next one will work out. And eventually they just get so conditioned to that way of thinking that you just have no fear.
Yeah, it's not
like, and sometimes that can be, you can go too far. Obviously, you have to know when to rein it in and that sort of stuff. But like, some people just have that baked in inherently. But I was not like that. Oh my God, I was anxious, and so I was like, oh, what's the safe thing? What's the safe way to scrum? What's the safe way to do this? What's the safe way to do that? And I've learned in my older, wider age of 32 that like sometimes safety is not always helpful.
So what you say there about having that baked in, like, what's a safe option? Something I can relate to. And I'm sure a lot of people listening are going to relate to as well. Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I wish I had the answer. Like maybe it's genetic or environmental, or I don't know. But I just know inherently for me, I was always, I think around rugby, I moved to tight head very, very late. I played number 8 my whole like junior career. I played like Australian schoolboys at number 8, and then I moved to tight head very, very late. And I got told by so many coaches and people, and I just had this narrative built into me that it's like, you're really good around the park, but you're a crap scrummager. And I just soaked that narrative up. So I think it's like, it's very much about the narrative that you truly believe about yourself. And if you have doubts within yourself around a certain aspect of your being, your brain's going to want to protect you against that. So around other areas of my game outside of scrummaging, I was like so cognitively free. I'd carry the ball, I'd offload, I'd throw no-look passes, all that sort of stuff, because I believed, I was like, yeah, I'm a skillful player, I'm fit, I'm a great ball carrier, I'm great around the park. But I just soaked up a narrative that I was a shit scrummager, even when I had like a multitude of evidence points contrary to that. I just early in my career soaked up a narrative that I was crap at it. So I just approached that. One aspect, I viewed scrums as like a different sport to rugby. I had like rugby and then I had scrummaging. And rugby I loved. Scrummaging I was terrified of, which is not ideal when you're a tight head. But I was terrified of it. And when I just had this fear response to it because I'd soaked up a narrative from very, very earlier on, and I just believed it to my core that I was never that good at it. And when it went well, it wasn't a sense of achievement, it was a sense of relief. It was like, oh, thank God that went well. They must have had a bad day at the office. I'd externalize it. I'd be like, oh God, luckily they didn't scrum that well. Or I just think it was I'd be like, oh my God, thank the Lord. It was never like, yeah, I did really well today. That was awesome. Like, good on you. It was always a fear-based thing, and I'd find a way to scrummage that would safeguard me the most. So I guess my belief around where it comes from is a narrative that you believe about yourself, whether that was drilled into you externally through environmental factors, through whatever. But the narratives that we tell ourselves are what manifests in our physical behavior. And we're recording this, I made a video on this morning, is like that our self-talk and the narratives that we believe about ourselves manifest into our physical realities. It is just the way it is. And I made a video this morning saying how I mentioned it before, the things I'm struggling with retirement, how I'm struggling to switch off and relax and that sort of stuff. And I was walking my dog this morning and I saw someone commented on my video the day before saying, oh, I can't do that, I'm lazy.
Yeah. Cool story,
and I was like, are you lazy, or do you tell yourself you're lazy and you believe it, therefore you behave that way? And then I thought about myself and I was like, do I struggle to relax, or have I just convinced myself that that's me? Because my voice was telling me that, and now I just keep saying it, and now it stops me from doing it. So I'm like, no, I want to make a conscious decision that if I hear that voice, I'll be like, no, it's just a voice. No, like, I like relaxing. I like chilling out. Like, I want to recover. And it's funny how you can shape your external reality through your internal one. So I think a lot of people are very married to an internal voice or a narrative that they soak up around fear-based responses to things. And that's where people want to play it safe. And I was the same for so long. And for some aspects of my life, I still am. But I've got over it a lot because I've really focused on actively trying to change the narrative and the way I speak to myself and the way my belief about me as a person. You know, if I was wanted the safe option, I'd still be playing rugby. I'd still be playing rugby. I wouldn't be living off savings trying to start a business whilst having a mortgage in Southwest London. It's not a safe thing I'm doing, but it felt right. And that's what I lent into. And it was scary. Does it bring me anxiety? Every day it brings me anxiety, but it also brings me a lot of fulfillment. And when I get those periods of anxiety, I have the ability once again to stop and be like, you know, this is who I am and this is what I value and this is making me feel fulfilled. So once again, I've gone on a really long-winded tangent of where does it come from? I think it's the internal narratives that we tell ourselves and we've convinced ourselves are true. But you can unpick those and believe it and talk to yourself in any way and, you know, create your physical reality through that.
Amazing. And I want to kind of hit reverse a little bit because you said something in there that leads us really nicely on the next point. Like one of the reasons that I love watching your content, love listening to what you want to say, and that I was like, I want this guy on the show is the way you talk about identity change. And it is, again, such a big thing that we talk about here, moving from that, you know, rugby player through to no longer being that. Like I said, you've done a lot of like wearing different hats with it, which is I think is a really interesting way to look at it, and something that we definitely look at. I think is like a takeaway, certainly for me, is like actually like having more of hats to switch between.
Yeah.
And I was watching one of your videos the other day, and you were saying about building blocks and of confidence and stacking that evidence, and sort of to go back a little bit on what you said about being very, very outcome based. And we love, you know, we put all of this work in up front and we lack that level of reward in the process and in those early stages.
Yeah.
And you use the analogy of the goal is to run the London Marathon, but actually the goal, a better goal, is become a runner. I'm no runner, but I love that initial process and that thought of like it's almost who do I need to become rather
to achieve to put myself in the best position to achieve that thing.
I absolutely love that, and it's so easy to be. I could sit here and now be like, right, I'm going to run the London Marathon. I'm going to run the marathon.
Yeah. And where I'm sure from where you are right now, if you just focus on that, the vastness and the gap between where you are now to there would just seem insurmountable. Like, I don't know where you are running, but for most people, if it's like, if you told me, if I told myself you're going to run the London Marathon, I'd be like, oh, God, that sounds terrifying. But yeah, if there's just other ways to go about it where if you commit to becoming a runner, what does that look like realistically? Maybe it's a 10-minute run twice a week. You're a runner. You can commit to that. And then maybe that identity will develop from being a 10-minute twice a week runner to a 10-minute 3 times a week runner to a 20-minute 3 times a week runner to maybe within, and then when that identity shift is what brings you value, then before you know it, you look up and you're like, oh my God, I just ran half a marathon that weekend. God, okay, yeah, I think I can do. And then it just gives you those little, as you said, it's really hard. Delayed gratification is a fantastic skill, but it only works for so long. You can only keep showing up for so long but you are getting somewhere if you ground your, gratification in something that is attainable over and over and over again, like the process or an identity shift.
Yeah. And like something when you were talking then, it's like starting to view a spectrum, like identity is a bit of a spectrum.
Mm.
So on one end, we'll just use a famous name for argument's sake. We've got Mo Farah,
Yeah.
internationally renowned
Yeah.
runner, runs marathons, just, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Rapid.
He's a runner.
He's a runner. But if I decide, right, once we've wrapped up here, I'll put my trainers on and I'm going to run. I need to post a letter, run to the post box, and I'm going to run back.
You're a runner. If you commit to that being part of your identity, you're a runner. Like, but the main thing with identity shift is that it's grounded in growth. The satisfaction has to come from improvement and growth if you want to get anywhere. That's where you have to take your wins. Because as I said, you can be Mo Farah the runner, or you can be the mum of 3 who runs 10 minutes in the evening whilst pushing a baby in a pram. Both of them are runners, you know? Mo may get joy when he runs a 2-hour marathon, but Wendy, the pregnant mum who's running, may get joy when she ran for 11 minutes instead of 10. That doesn't make the fulfillment or any different. You can get the same level of achievement and fulfillment because it's unique to your situation. But when you make an identity shift to be like, I'm going to commit to being this type of person that's going to do this, that's where the joy comes. And I've said it a lot of times, a lot of my videos, like self-worth and self-confidence, like there are essentially, it is just keeping the promises that we tell ourselves. Like they're the easiest, it's the easiest promise it's the most frequent promise is broken. And people find it so much easier to break a promise to themselves and break a promise to someone else. But they don't understand that it's way more detrimental breaking promises you make to yourself, because every single time you do it, it just slowly erodes your confidence in yourself that you're ever going to be able to do the things you say you're going to do. However, when you make your own promises to yourself your priority, your self-confidence and self-worth and self-belief explodes. Like I've got to the point now, whereas if I tell myself I'm going to do something, I don't just believe it, I know I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to do it, because the thought of not honoring a promise to myself is like, it's just, I can't, like, it's like, what the hell? And I can't not do it. And do I always achieve the thing? No, but as I said, I ground myself in my effort towards the thing. And yeah, just if you build a stack of, and this comes from my favorite, if anyone wants an amazing content creator to watch and listen to, and a lot of the stuff he actually inspired me to post, his name is Higher Up Wellness on TikTok and Instagram.
Rings a bell. I think I follow him.
Is an amazing, articulate bloke who mainly speaks more about the physical stuff, but also he's a lot in the mindset. And he introduced you to the quote saying, like, you don't become who you want to become by screaming affirmations in the mirror. You become who you want to become by having an undeniable stack of evidence that you are who you say you are. And I heard that and I was like, God damn it, that is so good. Every time you show up for yourself and, honor a promise to yourself, it's just another block saying, yep, I am this type of person, And as we said, you want to run the London Marathon, just start building little blocks of becoming a runner. And every time you show up for yourself, that confirms I'm a runner. The wall gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And maybe it'll take you 5 years. Maybe it'll take you 5 months. But if you commit to those little progressions, I promise you, anyone, me, you, someone who's 200 kilos right now, anyone can become a runner and run the London Marathon. It just may be a very long, arduous journey for some. It may come easier for some. It may come much harder for others. But if you commit to becoming a runner and slowly building towards it and get joy in that process, you can do it. Now, do I want to run a marathon? Hell no, that does not bring me joy. But the principle is the same. Commit to an identity shift and the process of shifting that identity and self-improvement. And then the long-term goal will either happen or it won't. But the gratification and the joy you get from it is guaranteed.
What an incredible place to end. That full-on mic drop from you there, mate. Class.
There you go.
Unreal. So what's next for you, mate? What's happening for the rest of the year? next few months?
I'm deep in starting up a business right now. So me and an ex-professional cyclist, one of my best mates, he's an ex-professional cyclist. We are starting a business which we've created a human high performance operating system that we are essentially taking all the mindset tools and stuff we learned from professional sport and packaging it in a way that we are implementing it into businesses to optimize their teams and people through the lens of the high performance nature of professional sport. So we want to optimize, get the most out of people. We want to make people high performers and in the workplace, get more fulfillment out of their work, all through the lens of professional sport and our personal narrative. And we arm them with tools that we use and convert it into their sort of world. And like I said, we're there to serve people, and we both want to, instill the ability to cope under pressure, because pressure is universal. Everyone experiences pressure, but just environments are different. And the pressure cooker of professional sports is intense. So we've created a system where we've taken the best learnings from that, packaged it in a way that we can run with teams and leaders within business to help them in their daily life to become better performers, more resilient, better communicators, to align better, to respond to leadership better, to lead better, to create better culture, all that sort of stuff. And it's all grounded in professional sport. But yeah, we package it to businesses and teams and stuff within business. So that's been a journey so far. We got this concept, we came about in about December time last year. So it's about 11 months down the road. And we're launching properly in January, probably. And between now and Christmas, we're just doing a lot of stuff. We're busy, which is good. And when you start your own thing, it's good to be busy. But yeah, that is consuming a lot of my time right now. And outside of that, I'm doing the content stuff at the open book. I am being a good husband. I'm showing up for my mates. I'm just leaning into all those pillars of my life. And yeah, hopefully I don't run out of savings and I can get this business off the ground. And if I do, I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's really filling my cup right now doing this stuff, putting out the content with the open book, building Avos, which is my business, is really filling my cup. And then being able to spend more time with my wife and my family and my friends and stuff has just been good. It's been really good. It's been hard, but like I feel like I'm getting the hang of it and I'm starting to really find peace, which is nice.
Amazing. What I'll do is I'll link your socials in the caption of the YouTube video /
Awesome.
podcast. Mate, thanks so much. I love that.
I had a great time, man. That was a really cool chat. I'm sorry. I feel like I hijacked a lot of questions and went off on massive tangents, but when I'm passionate about some stuff, I just verbal diarrhea.
That's what I wanted you on. Like that's the passion, the insight, your story and, open book nature.
Yeah, I am. I know. I am what it says on the tin is what you get. Like I'm really passionate about helping people with their brains because I think it's a superpower when you unlock it.
Amazing. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed that. Have a good one, brother.